Hey friends, I wanted to take a minute today to come here and talk about minerals. Minerals are such an overlooked part of health and healing, even in the holistic health world. I mean, definitely in the Western medical model, which you'll never hear any doctors telling you about vitamins and minerals. But I pulled some statistics, and I guess apparently over 90% of Americans are estimated to be deficient in at least one essential vitamin or mineral. Um, and it looks like the most common one that's documented is a magnesium deficiency, affecting between 50 and 70% of Americans. And minerals govern all of our biochemical reactions, everything from like blood sugar regulation to heart rhythm to metabolic processes happening on the cellular level. Um, and so many, because of our modern diet, people eating a standard American diet are not really getting nutrition from their food because of these highly ultra processed foods that are deficient in vitamins and minerals. And then even if you're eating produce, the soil has become deficient in vitamins and minerals. So unless you're getting produce from someone who has remediated the soil and is working on soil health, we're our a vegetable now has, 30 to 60% less nutrient content than it would have in our great grandparents' generation. So most metabolic diseases can be linked to mineral deficiencies. This includes insulin resistance, obesity, hypertension, cholesterol issues, triglyceride imbalances, on and on and on. Um, all connected. Okay, so we're talking about cardiovascular disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, bone disorders, thyroid dysfunction, all are rooted in minerals because our minerals and the balance of minerals in our bodies govern how our bodies are functioning, how they're undergoing all of the processes that keep us alive. Um, and so, what does that mean? Does that mean we all need to start getting on supplements? Well, that's where it becomes dangerous because if you're paying attention in like the holistic world, you see all these influencers and um, people who aren't actually health practitioners are, writing articles about it and posting videos about how, oh, everybody needs to get on a calcium supplement or everybody needs to start taking magnesium. Everybody's deficient, so we all need to take it. And I think that's actually dangerous and it can create further issues because with our minerals, it's not just a matter of how much we have, it's a matter of the relational balance between mineral ratios. So minerals work together with other minerals and other vitamins, and they need to be in particular ratios in our body in order to have that beneficial impact in order for us to function optimally. So when we just, without even testing our mineral levels, we just start popping a single mineral supplement, we could be throwing our balance completely out of whack and making symptoms worse, and getting further away from healing. And so, there are ways that you can test for minerals. The HTMA test is a really simple one. It's a hair mineral analysis where you send in hair samples to a lab. They can test the minerals in your body over the last 3 months prior to you collecting that hair. So it can be helpful to get a big profile of your mineral health altogether. And for a lot of people who've come upon this place in their health where they feel like, hey, I think I'm eating healthy. I think I have the lifestyle down. Maybe I'm working with supplements or herbal medicine and there's still just something off, and I can't figure it out. Minerals can be a really nice place to look, because they can really clue you into the hyper specific things and pieces of the puzzle that you might be missing, and ways to nourish your body. Now, with that being said, nothing is a fix-all. Nothing is a magic pill, not a thing. And I know a lot of people, are selling their protocol, promising, oh, it fixed me, so it's going to fix you. But we are all different, unique individuals. And so, that being said, what I see is that honestly, stress and nervous system stress, is the number one issue in chronic health problems. So you can check your minerals and start getting your minerals on track. But if you're still pushing yourself, if you're still so busy that you never rest, if you have a constant to-do list, if you can't stop, if you don't have time to do nothing, and that doesn't mean just binge watch Netflix. I mean, can you give your brain a rest also? Body, brain, emotions, they all need rest. And I think that rest has really been, pushed out of modern society where that we don't have time for it or we feel guilty, or we don't even know how to get it, because we're busy. But I think that this is the crucial piece. So everything I'm about to say about minerals isn't really going to work if you're not prioritizing stress reduction and mitigating your stress and trying to support your nervous system so that it's not constantly activated and pumping out cortisol, which is going to throw everything off. So that said, um, one great way to work with herbs, outside of this paradigm of just like, hey, which herbs are going to help me with a certain condition, herbs can be so nourishing and nutrient dense, and wild foods in particular have a much higher nutrient level than cultivated foods. Um, and so when we're harvesting wild plants on the level of vitamins and minerals, they just surpass any produce that we're going to find anywhere else. So there's a huge benefit of incorporating wild foods and herbs into our diet. However, just eating them, the nutrients aren't necessarily bioavailable. And so we need to like break them down more. So, whenever you boil or cook vegetables for a long time, you're pulling out more vitamins and minerals for most of them. Um, and that's just because the cell walls get broken down and now there's more time for those nutrients to extract out of the cell walls so that your body can use them. But the beauty of home herbalism is that we know that vinegar is a really strong solvent for vitamins and minerals. And vinegar is shelf stable. And so when we make a vinegar extraction, specifically with apple cider vinegar, not white distilled vinegar, you can use other fruit vinegars that you make, but not distilled vinegar. When we make a vinegar extraction, it's called an acetum. We're going to pull out a high volume of vitamins and minerals from any of the plants that we're putting in that extraction. And fortunately, we have so many plants that just have these incredible vitamin and mineral profiles. So if we combine those specific plants with our vinegar extraction, what we end up with is this full profile vitamin and mineral supplement where we're not isolating and just taking one mineral or one vitamin in high doses. We actually have this broad spectrum supplement that's going to nourish and support our systems from the inside out, giving us all those mineral and vitamin building blocks so that our cells can do what they're trying to do already. So, when we're talking about the highest nutrient content of a plant, nettles are really high up there. So stinging nettles are not native here in the US, but they've been cultivated so much that you can still find patches from where people have cultivated them. But we also have at least two native nettles that are equally high in vitamins and minerals. So when we're talking about the stinging nettles and the Canadian wood nettles and the heartleaf nettles, those are some that we can forage for. You can also purchase them if you're not a forager, but they're going to be super high in things like iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and then moderate levels of phosphorus, zinc, manganese, silicon, selenium, copper. They also have vitamin C and B complex vitamins. So they're going to have some A and some K, but those are not fat soluble vitamins are not extractable in vinegar, so we're not going to count that. Now, next up, and you might have heard this, is dandelion. Now, dandelion greens are one of the most nutritious greens that are readily available in the wild. And now I guess they're selling them in like health food stores. Meanwhile, everybody's poisoning them on their lawn. But dandelion greens are really high in potassium, calcium, and they have moderate amounts of iron, magnesium, phosphorus, manganese, vitamin C, and B complex vitamins again. Chickweed is another one. Now, chickweed, which comes out only when it's cooler, so like you can find it in the spring, we'll be seeing it again here when it cools up. But chickweed is another nutrient-rich plant. Calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron, zinc, phosphorus, vitamin C, and B complex. Okay, so you see we're getting these full profiles of vitamins and minerals. Um, and then I also like to incorporate oat straw. So oat straw is a Venus sativa. That's the plant that like oatmeal comes from. And then there's different parts of the plant that people harvest for different reasons. Like you might have heard milky oats is a very good nervous system herb. When we talk about oat straw, it's the dried oat plant. And that's going to be high in calcium, magnesium, iron, chromium, silicon, which is a source of silica for bone, hair, and skin health, zinc, manganese, potassium, and B complex vitamins. So that's a really great one to add. And then finally, I like to add raspberry leaf as well. It's another nutrient dense plant, um, high in calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, iron, manganese, C, and B complex. Okay, so when I'm talking about using these to make a acetum, a mineral acetum, I'm going to show you the process of how we're actually going to make this preparation. So here, um, we have a plain jar and we're using the folk method, so we don't need to measure specifically. I'm using each of the herbs that I just discussed here, and I'm gonna start filling my jar. Now, I'm not necessarily measuring out from plant to plant, like I'm not trying to make it even. If you want a recipe, then let's just say use equal parts of all the plants I mentioned, right? When I'm doing this, I sort of just do it till it feels right. Call it feel it in your heart. That's really big in the folk method. But what I want is to ultimately end up with my jar, at least half full of dried plant material. Now, I'm specifically using dried plants here because when you use fresh plants, which you can do, there's a little bit more chance of mold happening depending on the water content of the fresh herbs. Also, it's just really to keep all of these herbs on hand in their dried form. And so I do have them on hand all the time because I also like to make an herbal infusion with these for the minerals. So again, if you don't have all of these herbs, you can use any combination or even just one. So even if you did this with only nettle or only dandelion greens, you're still going to end up with a very nutrient dense supplement that's going to support your overall health and well-being. Um, so it doesn't, you don't have to be worried too much if you can't source any of these. Everybody can source dandelions if you go outside. Just make sure you're not harvesting from a place where they're sprayed. Um, and, even if you just let them wilt before putting them in, like wilt overnight or for 24 hours, then you're really going to reduce the water content and then you're going to chop them into really small pieces to expose the surface area. And then you can continue with this method. So I have all of my plant material in my jar, and next up, I'm going to pour in organic apple cider vinegar. Now, you can make your own apple cider vinegar pretty readily, or you can use purchased vinegar. And you just want to fill your jar all the rest of the way up to the very top. We do not want to leave any air in the jar, and that's going to help prevent mold and things like that. So all the way up with apple cider vinegar. And then I'm going to take a piece of wax paper. You can use parchment paper, you can use beeswrap or a piece of cloth, whatever you have on hand. And I'm going to make sure that the metal lid does not come in contact with my vinegar. Vinegar touching the metal will oxidize, it'll start to rust. You don't want that in your medicine. And so I'm going to shake it thoroughly up until all the plant material is completely covered. And then I'm going to store this in a cool, dark place for about 4 weeks. And that's how long it'll take for these plants to fully extract into the vinegar, all the vitamins and minerals to pull out. And once that is finished extracting, I'm going to strain out the plant material. And now I have my completed acetum. And there's a few things that you can do with this once it is completely strained out. You can take the vinegar by itself as a daily dose, half a teaspoon or a teaspoon at a time, dosing a teaspoon or two a day, adding it to water or anything else. You could also mix your vinegar with an equal part of raw honey and make something called an oxymel. For people who don't love the taste of vinegar, this is really nice because the honey cuts the edge and makes it much more palatable. And then you can use that, you can take that by the dose or added to water. You can also use that as like a dressing. You could put that on your greens, on your salads, on anything, and consume it that way. And that's called an oxymel. Now, I mentioned doing an herbal infusion. So, the other way to get a lot of minerals from your herbs is to make an overnight tea. So, basically, you would take a quart jar and then you would use around an ounce of whatever dried herb you're going to use. So, the nettles or the dandelions or the chickweed or a combination. And then you're going to boil your water and you're going to fill that jar all the way up with your boiled water, put the lid on, and then leave it on your counter while you sleep. Now, in the morning, you can strain that. You can sip on that throughout the day. That's called a nourishing infusion. And we leave it to steep for that long so that it'll actually pull out minerals. And drinking a nourishing infusion every day can also be a game changer. It can boost energy, it can reduce blood pressure. I mean, people have had all sorts of things to report to me after starting to take these mineral infusions every day and also dosing their mineral vinegar. So, this is such a simple thing that you can do at home, and it can really just be that extra step in supporting your own health that can make a difference for some people. So, I just wanted to share that on here. And let me know if you have any questions or if you end up trying this. All right, y'all, have a good rest of your day.